What would you do if you woke up to the phrase, everything is meaningless? On today's conversation, we're actually going to open up that phrase in a way that helps us recognize even more about who we are and what we're called to do in the earth. So, a phrase like is meaningless can actually be the launching point into the more of God in your life. So join us today on Kingdom Made, where we have conversations that pull us out of religion and into the kingdom, one conversation at a time. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment as we dive into today's conversation. Here we go. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Camille. Hi, friends.
I actually did wake up a couple weeks ago with that phrase, everything is meaningless. And it was so clear and it was so assertive. And if you ever work up with that language and it's coming from Ecclesiastes, and Solomon is doing this exploration into what is existing in the world. He had such divine wisdom that he was exploring so many things around the earth, around creation, understanding God, understanding aspects of life. And to come to this statement, everything is meaningless, was so important because it sets us up for understanding what actually is of greater value and how we can align our lives to allow the full weight of wisdom to come forward. So I thought it would be good to have a conversation of, if you were to wake up with that phrase, everything is meaningless, Chris, what would you do? What would come to your mind and your heart?
Actually, it happened to me before, but it wasn't a phrase that I was awakened to. I was actually having a moment. I was driving and I was reflecting on life in itself.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on my mom. I think it was perhaps maybe a year after she passed.
Hmm.
And I'm driving and I started to think of all of the things that she accumulated while she was here. Because for a while, we never touched anything in her room, so everything was just the way she left it. And I'm like, "Oh my god," it's like we come here, we work, we acquire things, we have value, we value this, we value that, and then we're no longer here. And so for me, as I began to ponder on that thought that I was having within myself, I started to just kinda expand how I look and process life. And began to redefine purpose for me and how I wanted to continue or just kind of pursue things that I thought I valued because, of course, we value the material things, for lack of a better word. Those things hold some sense of value to us. And it was just this moment where I'm like, none of these things mean anything when you're gone. And I just began at that moment, began to start devaluing the tangible things that we think makes us us, whether it's a house, a car, our degrees, sometimes even our children, because we love so much and we love the things that we hold. And the way I process that, it's like they become fixtures of furnitures that we know once I come, it's going to be there. They're going to be there. And I just started to kinda look at life a little bit different after that moment, after that thought that all of these things that we have, it means nothing. And I began to shift my mindset on what I wanna hold value, what I have that's more valuable to me than what I can actually touch. And it kinda began to change my perspective on life and what I wanna put value in, and I began to value my family more. I began to value time more and just creating memories more, and it also opened up my walk with Christ because in that moment of grief, I'm like, "I know that I wanna see my mom again, so I've gotta get this thing right." And so it just kind of shifted my perspective in that moment of the things that sometimes we can put extra stock in. So you can share how you kind of took that phrase that came up to you, everything is meaningless, and how it shaped your perspective and your mindset.
Well, I think part of what it really did for me is encourage me to stay on things that had eternal value. As someone who I like to see results. I like to be that person who crosses things off a list because there's something very satisfying for me just getting
Mhm,
something and putting that line through that item. At the same time, it's recognizing I like living with purpose and knowing that there's something that I'm working towards, something that is being accomplished, something that I can feel that's tangible. Part of what I feel that the Lord was revealing by creating space to hear that statement was that some things that are really more intangible are spiritual. So there's a tangibility on spiritual realities. There's a tangibility on what we actually create and establish that has eternal value and giving space for that. And for me, a practical example that I'm learning and growing in is someone who is an entrepreneur and creating business. When you start a business, there's a lot of hours that go into creating and designing and structuring and coming up with plans and knowing your financings, your audience. There's all these suggestions of how you build rightly, how to use social media, how to use marketing, how do you get your word out there? How do you make partnerships? Everyone is an expert in something, and one expert has another idea of how you build. And so it can be a really noisy space to try to build
mhm,
something, even when you know you're doing it for God. Like you want to build something for the Lord. You're desiring to build something that
mhm,
has kingdom value. I speak with a lot of Christian leaders that that's their desire is to build something and having this language of the seven mountains and which one you're taking and all those things that can really be motivators. And in that, I feel like the Lord was saying there's something even more to attain than what you believe you need to do to attain the thing that I asked you to do. Being with Christ is a business strategy. Taking the
mhm,
time just to enjoy his presence so that building something is not just looking at what I'm creating in the now, is what can I create from an eternal place that has already been finished in God. So I capture that finished reality so I can be the conduit to allow it to have expression in the earth. And the vehicle for that expression looks like the business that I have that will outlive me. I desire it to outlive me. I desire it not to have me as the centerpiece, but as the vehicle for Christ to be seen. And to do it in a way that serves all of humanity, not just the ones that believe like me, look like me, came from the same area as me, because if it's kingdom, it'll impact all things and all people.
yeah,
And so for me, it was getting the centrality of there's so many things that were in my day that I wanted to make sure I had space for. And he was saying, sometimes what your business strategy looks like in a morning is being still with me, is legislating from your priesthood. That is your marketing strategy, not all the posts that you need to do. Can I teach you kingdom strategies outside of man's systems? And for me, that was part of everything is meaningless in the sense that if you're using strategies that don't come from the now word of God, you can sometimes end up building something with good intentions that don't have eternal impact. And to recognize that the most important thing, as Solomon was revealing as you go through Ecclesiastes, is that in all the things that he saw that had some value and all the toils of man, that it boiled down to the necessity of seeking God and knowing wisdom and pursuing the will of God. And so for me, that became the centrality of it, that even in the pursuit of doing, that God actually wants to build with us. And that looks like relationship and being acquainted with his nature. So in everything that we do, that becomes the centerpiece. And so I love the fact that he's teaching me that marketing can look like releasing sounds of love as I spend time in his presence. I like the fact that it's connecting to what Paul actually decrees and declares in many of his writings when he says that everything else he's done, he considered it dung. Like, he was a
Mhm.
Pharisee of Pharisees, he was
Meaningless.
educated, he had all of these
Yeah.
skill sets that he can lean into and find value in, and many of us do. And he said, "I count
Mhm.
that all as dung." In
Mhm.
comparison to being known of in Christ, to be associated with Christ, his death and resurrection, like to value that
Mhm.
intimacy and that union and having that association
Mhm.
was far greater than everything else
Yeah.
that could be attached to his value and worth. So for me,
Yeah.
it helps keep things in focus of priority. And it
Mhm.
actually gives more value to the other parts of our lives because they're ordered rightly.
Mhm.
Because he gets set as that priority. And I'm also learning that it also means that your inner world doesn't change when a circumstance or a material aspect does, because the centerpiece is him. So Jesus is actually the centerpiece that makes everything have meaning. For me, that was a key reflection, a key encouragement, even as we go through these transition seasons. And I just wanted to bring it up because I feel like others will connect with this, especially if you're
Mhm.
pursuing purpose. There's something on your heart. You made a decision. You might have left a job because you're pursuing God. Like, you moved to a
Mhm.
different place. Like, there's something that you're doing. You left a community that you know because there is a hunger inside of you. There's these shifts that,
Yeah.
you know, comes out of a place of hunger. And part of the response to that hunger is going, he really is the source of your strength, your life. Like, he is
Mhm.
the sustenance of life.
You used this word, you said key, and as we were sharing, the first thing came to mind was just this turnkey. And again, it's the meaninglessness of things, and it looks different for everyone. And for me, it's always when things are happening that are literally crushing me into where I am down to my bare. And he's like, come on in. So it's this pathway that opens up when life begins to happen and you enter into this space of intimacy and just surrendering to say, I don't even know what to do now. Because oftentimes we can create a system around a person, a system around a job, a rhythm, a routine around these things that are our constant, and they become our strongholds and they become our sure thing. For me, I understand I have this beautiful, unique relationship with the Lord where I've learned now that nothing and no one's gonna sit on the throne of my heart. Nobody has access to that but him. Because in our ignorance, we haven't been literally drawn into him, and yet we're just living life and just thinking, "Oh, this is it, and, life is grand," and there's so much more. And it's when you enter into him, you realize all of these things means nothing if he's not the core of it, and if he's not the source of it all. So when life begins to happen and you enter into this space of nothingness where nothing matters but him, it's when life becomes more meaningful. And then it kind of put things in perspective and in place to say, if I can't have Jesus with this, I don't want it. And that's kinda how I am. I'm not willing to trade anything for him. So if it doesn't come in with peace, if it doesn't come with him, no thank you, because it's that important to me. And so I just believe it's just this drawing into and away from the distraction to say, "Hey, all of these things are meaningless if it's not Christ-centered.
Yeah,
Even if you have it all, you've gotta have him as the center of it all.
because I don't know Jesus. And in that, part of my heart is to say, because of how amazing he is, and even using phrases like, he sends rain on the just and the unjust. And rain to me is blessing because to
Mhm.
harvest something, to allow something to grow, you need that aspect of water. You need to wash that word, wash that seed to enjoy the blessing that's been given to you. And all of these aspects that are blessings are because they were purposed in God and were created from a good father. And so even things that we have placed outside of him still carry life and carry purpose because they're of him. But there's this piece that when it gets connected in our conscious awareness, that the value they have is connected to the one who made them and we connect
Yeah.
that reality, it sparks so much greater reflections of life and it unlocks
Mhm.
so much more when that which he's allowed to exist in our lives gets connected back to the source of the one who gave it
Right.
life in the
Yeah.
first place. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's part of the beauty of seeing experiences people are having. So the meaning that's placed in it
Mhm.
doesn't become meaningless, but gets expressed in
Yeah.
even greater reality is connecting it back to Christ that allows it to
That
exist because he's good.
all things exist in him, so mhm.
Exactly. And it's that beauty of awakening it in others, right? And saying, all
Yeah.
these blessings, there's someone who's permitted that in your life. And would you like to know
Mhm.
more about him? Would you like to know the reason
Yeah.
why there's a stirring in your heart that's not being quenched? Would you like to know why you have a lot of material wealth, but something is still missing inside of you? Like, let's give what you
Mhm.
have. It's not evil, it's just out of posture. And so you can give
Yeah.
it the right life by connecting it to the right source. And the other
Yeah.
thing that was stirring in my heart was actually a conversation that I had many, many years ago. There was this lovely lady. She was an elder in the church that I attended years ago. And she would be one of those ladies who always had a smile on her face. She came from a Jamaican background and had this lovely accent. She would be at prayer meetings when it was a snowstorm. She would get on that bus, travel for an hour to come and pray, whether it was 2 or 3 people. This sister was there, this joy to her, and I remember at the time I was in high school getting ready to go to university, and when I went to visit her or drop something off, she would give me a hug and smile, and then she would just clasp my hand and have a $20 bill just to give to me. She always had these little things that she would bless me with and just tell me how much she was proud of me and just spoke so much life into me during that time of my life. And when I was away from school and I had graduated and had started working, when I came back for a visit just to visit my family, I found out that she had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I wanted to go see her. People had said that she was expected to live for 3 months, and she had already outlived the 3 months. I had an opportunity to go visit her at her home, and her family was there. You can tell that her children had been crying because 'cause they're still processing
Mhm.
what's going on, and we're believing for healing, and she opens the door with the biggest smile on her face. And so I went and I had some time to spend with her in her home, and she made us this pot of tea, and we were sitting in her dining room just having conversation. And I began asking her about her life. And she began to tell me the story of her life. There were so many twists and turns, how the relationship with her husband, she actually got caught up in a cult and shared how it was like a cult that she had to escape from. There was all these elements that I had no idea were part of her story. Talk about life. One of the things I really enjoy is having conversations about what they've gleaned from their journeys in life. And I remember asking her this question.
Yeah.
And I asked her if there was one thing that you wanted to leave behind to share with your children, what would that one thing be? That advice that has hold true for your entire life. And I remember her sitting at that table across from me, sipping her tea and thinking about it. And she said, the one thing I would tell you that would serve you for your entire life is have a place in your heart known as the throne of your heart and make sure God is the only one on it. And I remember her saying that and it hit my heart. It was one of the best advice that I think I've ever received. She said, make sure God is the only one on it and then guard it. And she said, Camille, when things don't line up, you're going to go through circumstances. She said, I love my children, but they always don't do what I believe they should. They're gonna be a headache sometimes, and there's gonna be things and they're their own people, and you have to let them live their lives, but you can't let them dictate your life. Keep God at the center, and you'll love them through all their seasons. And then she began to tell me about a spouse, and she's like, sometimes it'll feel like they're close, and sometimes they'll feel like they're distant. But you'll know how to stay in love if you keep God at the center, keep him on that throne and guard it. And I took that advice to heart because I could see the weight of joy that was resting on her in the midst of being in the home where people were crying. She was just in this place of absolute
Mhm.
shalom. She was at peace. She had so much joy in her. And I remember that moment because to me, that was a beautiful example of what it is to have the phrase everything is meaningless create a positive reality of how to keep Christ, to keep God on the throne of our heart. And so that was the other thing that came up for me was sitting at that table, gaining that life wisdom as I sip tea with an old
Mhm.
friend a whole lot longer than they anticipated, but she did pass away at that following Easter. She passed away on Good Friday. Was her last day on this side of eternity.
That was a beautiful story. And it just kind of reinforces why and the how to, right? Because sometimes we don't know how to do that. Like, how do I keep Christ? How do I place him on the throne of my heart and make sure no one else sits there when I love other people, when I have a desire for all of these things? Because I remember this conversation I had with the Lord, and he goes, do you know that the love that you desire, I gave that to you, but I wanted you to love me first.
Say that again,
And
but
that's just
louder.
oh, oh, so he goes, the desire, it was this, the desire that you have for love, because we all desire love. It's the one thing that everybody desires. He said, the desire that you have for love, I gave it to you, but I wanted you to love me first. And I was snotty nose crying because in that moment, I was able to see that I was loving other things more than I loved him, or desiring things more than I desired him. And he said, those things that you desire and that I want you to have them. I gave them to you, but I wanted you to love me first. And it was the way that he said it to me. It was so soft and it was so beautiful. And I just wept because I'm a crybaby. And it put things in perspective in that moment. And I think I had started doing them before, but it was just in that moment where he opened that up to me to say, whatever it is that you desire, I gave those desires to you. You desire to be successful. You desire to be happy. You desire all of these things. I want you to have them. I gave them to you, but just love me first, and you'll have all of that. It's nothing for me to give. It's yours. Just love me. And it was just this beautiful courtship that happened, and I felt deeper and deeper in love with Christ because he desired love from us. He desired for us to love him as much as he loves us.
Yeah, that's so good.
And so it's a beautiful it's a beautiful gem to say, "Hey, this is coming from an elderly woman, a friend of yours who had so much wisdom, and we haven't met half of her age, I'm assuming. And so
Yeah.
here is something that we can live with, right? To model to say, do not, that's the best advice is to make sure that Jesus is sitting on the throne of your heart. Don't have nothing or anyone else occupy that seat.
And you brought up a beautiful verse that I love going back to, and it kind of connects to our conversation around seeking first the kingdom of God and his
The kingdom.
righteousness. And all these things will be added onto you, right? It's this
Mhm.
beauty of the centrality of seeking, which connects to when we seek, we find. When we ask, he answers. When we knock, the door is opened unto us. And it's the same conclusion that Solomon, who was so full of wisdom, that when he surveyed all of creation from his position of power and authority and the wisdom not only in the physical realm but the realms of the spirit, when he explored these heights and depths of creation itself, it boiled down to the reality that it doesn't find value if you don't seek God, know him, and know wisdom. And so when we're seeking first the kingdom, it's like Jesus is reiterating this reality that Solomon came to when
Mhm.
he explored all of creation. And Jesus is saying, I'm telling you the truth. All of
Yeah.
these things are yours. But here's the key to unlocking everything that you desire: seek first the kingdom, seek first the nature of the king within you, so it has dominion set within the throne of your heart. Seek me first. So the life that's in me becomes the life that is in you. And it's the life that flows out of you that attracts everything that I already said is yours to you.
Yeah, I like that. It's the turnkey, and it came full circle again. Here's this turnkey, just turn and come. Turn come and enter into me. And all of the things you desire, you can have it.
Yeah.
It's just trading now with Christ. I had something here. Lord, I'm giving that to you so that you can occupy this space. Whatever that thing is that's sitting on the throne of your heart that is meaningless at the end of the day. You turn the key and you enter and you say, "Hey, you can occupy." Right? Nothing is off limits. And that's just the best advice that you can give is that all of these things are going to be added onto you if you just come and seek me. Seek me. And in seeking him, you'll find yourself.
Yes. When you seek him, you find yourself. I think that's a good phrase to land our conversation on because it really speaks to the pursuit of being known and knowing the one who knows you best. And as you see him, you see yourself. And it's the beauty, I think, of being kingdom made is being made in the image of the king. And when that becomes the pursuit of staying in union and recognizing you were made to be in union, divine oneness, living in one of my favorite words is kava, which is the word weight that has to do with this entwining, this enfolding like a three-stranded cord and coming into this place of seamless union. That becomes the pursuit of our heart. All of what creation has been groaning to release will respond to you as a son because they're waiting for us to become the living expression of the one that we've been born into. And the beauty of finding meaning in all of the things that we can attain and gain really comes from giving it the right expression, so that the home finds its right expression, the vehicles find their right expression, the relationships find their right expression. So the full weight of what it was meant to be gets expressed because it's seeing the glory of the life of God coming through you. So I feel like something so powerful around that statement is that we will find the full expression of what everything in creation is meant to carry when it's all centered on Christ and it's all revealed through God's nature being expressed by us as sons who have sought first the kingdom of God and his righteousness as the centerpiece of our life. And so, Chris, what would you like to add to that conversation?
So harmony actually came up. It's just bliss, it's harmony. And even if you're alone, you're in harmony. If you're in commune with other people, there's harmony because the kingdom is birthed within us. So it's just coming into union with self to say, hey, I have entered into this space and place of nothingness where all things exist, and I'm in harmony and peace and rest there. So that's what I wanna add to what you're sharing. It's just this space of complete harmony and bliss where nothing else matters. I'm with Jesus and I am on top of the world, okay? It's the little things that matter. I'm telling you, it's just finding meaning in the tiniest of the tiniest thing where you can just express gratitude for that. And
Yeah.
so that's where I find my joy and harmony in. Yeah.
Yes. I think that's actually really good advice just to leave as our friends who are listening, because some of you might be going through situations or feeling something that you are desiring to leave in God's hand, but it comes out as worry in your heart. That in this season, finding the gratitude and even the smallest things can start to shift you out of that space. Recognizing that this is an opportunity to let the fire of his love and his words just begin to align your heart, just so that if there's something that has settled in, that has become enthroned in that place, that is the heart of you, that this is an opportunity to allow him to realign that place in you. Realign it by inviting him into it. Say, Lord, I think I've put you second fiddle to my children, to my work, to even the purpose you gave me. I allowed a prophetic
Mm,
word to speak louder than just time with you. And so I'm bringing myself before you just to return to the simplicity of intimacy. And I'm opening my heart so you can sift it out and align it onto the full weight of life that I know is mine to live in. And we'll use that as a prayer point, as a starting place to allow that realigning to happen in a way that still produces life and joy without having you dumpster dive in your heart, but just exposing your heart so the right person who's meant to carry the weight of being enthroned can allow the weight of his glory to not be a burden to you, but a life flowing river that will come through you. And so stay in gratitude, find those moments, and be in stillness and open your heart once again because you were made for more. And this is truly the time to step out of things that won't find their meaning until they find their meaning in Christ. And so, with that, we love you, we honor you, and we say stay mobilized.
stay mobilized and spend time with Christ.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Bye for now.